A lot of organizations decide that, yes, this is the year we're going to embark on all of these digital strategies that we've been discussing over the last couple of years, possibly a couple of decades. And it begins with organizational alignment. The digital transformation is made up of people, process, and technology, right? And very often technology projects are embarked upon for the sake of the technology. And it very often doesn't take into account the people side of the equation, the process side of the equation. Process side of the equation is really what is going to affect and improve our business processes going forward. And so taking a look at where current systems and current processes kind of come together and are not working well, need to identify those gaps, figure out exactly how you're going to approach it as both an executive team and then all the way down through the organization. That requires a very introspective view of the organization. We call that loosely executive alignment, but it's alignment of the whole organization around a move forward strategy that doesn't include boiling the ocean. It includes, in some cases, spot replacement of technology, but very often you have to look at the overall business as a whole and your business planning for the next 3 to 5 years and pulling the planning together. We refer to this as kind of a phase zero approach. You're looking at both the people, process, and technologies in alignment with your business planning as in many cases, a 3 to 6 month view of how are we going to prepare the organization to move forward in a measurable and considerable way. You've seen that a lot with many of our clients. Very often when people don't go through that phase zero and that preparation, organizational prep, then it is a recipe for failure.
Yeah, largely because you don't get the alignment between whatever the overall strategy is of the organization and the digital transformation or ERP project. It's easy to just sort of focus on the technology, the shiny object, and just jump in and start deploying it. But if you don't take the time to do that phase zero, you end up usually getting a disconnect between what the strategy is of the company and the actual initiative. And so it's a way to sort of help bridge that gap and give you a foundation or a blueprint for deploying and pursuing technology in a way that aligns with your goals and objectives. So what are some good ways that you've seen organizations align their digital transformation goals with their broader business goals and objectives in the new year?
Well, I'm a big believer in the business plan. So many organizations just really take the time to get down to what is our strategic plan. How do we put that together from both a budget and a deployment standpoint? What is it going to take from a resource perspective? How many people are we going to tap within our organization to move this initiative forward? What is the total cost of ownership? And how do we measure that total cost of ownership against the return on investment? So nothing measured, nothing gained. If you don't upfront put together that comprehensive business plan as a part of any initiative, you're not going to know exactly who to look for on the technology side for the right solution for your organization. And you're not going to know exactly how much it's going to cost you and how many people, how many resources you're going to need in addition to the people that you have, or how can your internal team and your wicked smart people, as one of my Massachusetts friends said the other day, contribute to the program in a way that is going to be meaningful all the way throughout without overwhelming them, right? So it really takes that circumspect view of how are we going to move forward, what are we going to look at, how are we going to make it happen all the way along?
Yeah. Yeah. Makes total sense. I want to turn to the audience real quickly and just say hello to a few people that have chimed in with their location. Darian on LinkedIn says, good morning. Derek is joining from Dallas, Texas. Thanks for being here, Derek. C. Lynch is here from Plymouth, Massachusetts. So speaking of Massachusetts, I've got at least one person here from that region that might understand the wicked smart comment better than most.
Chris would understand that.
Yes. Yep. And then just not to get political here, but Rasim on YouTube says, I have hope for a second Trump period, less interest, more work. But the reason I wanted to bring up the part 2 of this comment is he has a strong relationship with tech bros. So it will be interesting to see how, not just in the United States, but other parts of the world, as geopolitical stuff shifts, how does that affect the technology world? How does that affect enterprise tech and digital transformations in general? That'll be interesting to watch here in the coming months in the coming year. But you mentioned before, Greg, you talked about this phase 0 concept, and you talked about how phase 0 is a way to mitigate against the risk of failure. It doesn't guarantee you're not going to fail, but it certainly gives you better odds than if you don't do a phase 0. Could you maybe help us explain like why that is? Why is phase 0 so important to mitigating the risk of failure, and more importantly, how is phase 0 so important to ensuring that you can be successful in your project?
Sure. A lot of people, a lot of organizations, which are people, really just don't even understand exactly what they look like from a readiness perspective. And so phase 0 allows us to step back just a little bit and really understand what is the capacity of our organization, of our people, to undergo the amount of change that we're going to be asking for in both a technical and a process development of a digital transformation. And there are 2 types of digital transformations. You can talk about a digital transformation with a capital T, as I like to say. So the digital transformation with a capital T, you're looking really mostly at a technology change. And so you're jumping in with perhaps an ERP vendor, and you're going straight forward, and you're essentially, in my mind, jumping off of a cliff into, we're going to go straight forward into implementation once we decide exactly who we're going to use for the ERP. That doesn't take into account anything that's going on within your organization, within your 4 walls, or your multiple walls, in terms of the people side of change. How are they going to react? How are they going to go along with the program? How is our process going to change to adapt to new technologies, or vice versa? How are we going to keep some of the technologies that we have in place that we can't replace right now, and sequence around them and with them to get the overall digital enterprise operations intact and moving forward? So there are so many little nuances that come into this as you're embarking on the whole technology change, that if you don't spend that upfront phase 0 piece in really understanding where you're going to run into pitfalls, you're going to run into pitfalls. So that's just one of the things that's overlooked in many cases. You just jump right in and go forward, and that's where we very often run into very, very great client partners that say, yeah, we started on this in the wrong way. Can we back up a little bit and restart in the right way? And we are seeing that all the time.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, and I agree with you. We've had a lot of clients, a number of clients over the years that have asked us to help them sort of back up and take a step back, and not to slow things down necessarily, but just to grease the wheels. I mean, really what you need to do at times is sometimes you get so much momentum going on these projects, especially when you start getting in the technical consultants and they just start designing and testing and building stuff. There's always plenty of work to do. Regardless of whether or not you're going the right direction, there's always plenty of work you could be doing. So it's easy to get caught up in all that and sort of lose sight of what it is you're trying to accomplish and what you want to be when you grow up, with your business processes, how you want to be organized, how you want to change people's jobs, all that stuff. And so I guess long way of saying it's really never too late to start phase zero, is it? Even if you're midstream, there can be value, maybe not in pausing completely necessarily, although some organizations we work with have put a complete timeout on the project to sort of get their ducks in a row. But even if you don't do that, even if you're still keeping the project moving, you could sort of back up and in parallel do some of this phase zero stuff to help you pivot and redirect the direction you're going with the project. Is that something you see as well?
Absolutely. We have a very great client, and a partner that's been with us for many years now. And we completed the implementation of a new system, new ERP system. We are now going back through, and we did process aligning. We're doing process management now and getting to process optimization.